দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর নিয়মিত আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে। মুখোমুখিতে প্রতি পর্বে আমাদের সাথে কখনো দেশি অতিথি থাকেন, কখনো বিদেশি অতিথি থাকেন। তারা বাংলাদেশ সফর নিয়ে, বাংলাদেশের সাথে তার সম্পর্ক নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলে থাকি এবং তার কাছ থেকে জানার চেষ্টা করি, বোঝার চেষ্টা করি বাংলাদেশের সাথে তিনি কীভাবে কাজ করছেন, আগামী চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো এবং সমাধানের উপায়। সেই ধারাবাহিকতায় আজকে আমাদের সাথে যোগ দিয়েছেন আইএফআরসি প্রেসিডেন্ট কেট ফোর্বস। Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Is it your first time in Bangladesh?
It is my first time in Bangladesh.
Okay.
I selected this. I'm new to this position. Just started my 6th month. And one of the things I want to focus on is migration and climate change.
Right.
And if there's two things that Bangladesh is dealing with, it's
Yes.
climate change and migration. So
And interlinked.
Interlinked. And so I thought it was important that I come.
Okay.
Also, the Bangladesh Red Crescent is on our board and does an amazing job. And you may not know it, but you have the leading early warning system that we want to replicate to others around the world. So it was great to see it in action, and now I'm getting to meet the amazing Bangladesh people. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's good to know. So what are the places you've been, what have you seen, and what's your take?
Well, that, for only 72 hours, that is a complicated question.
Okay.
The first thing I did was helicopter down to see the impacts of the recent cyclone. And I must tell you, as you fly over the fields and see that the rice paddies are gone,
Yeah.
the cattle have been killed, drowned,
Yes.
first thing that comes is the devastation of people, the trauma of losing it. But then I think, okay, we're going to have a hunger crisis here, a food insecurity that we're
Right.
going to need to address in the future. First impression. Then as we landed, of course, you come in contact with people who've been displaced and traumatized.
Yes,
You
obviously.
can imagine what that would mean to lose everything and not knowing when you could go back. But on the plus side, I saw some amazing things as well. First of all, the Bangladesh Red Crescent had responded extremely well. They had shelters in place beforehand. And I keep talking about this, but you have no idea how important this is. They have now operations to be able to produce clean drinking water
Yes.
out of flood water. And you say yes, but I just recently was in Kenya where we were desperately trying to get, same thing, floods, 5-7 kilometers away was water. This was right there, right where the communities were, right where the shelters. There was no panic over water. People were quietly lined up getting clean water. It could be produced 24/7. This is such a breakthrough, and the Bangladesh Red Crescent, through help with the IFRC, was making this happen. I can't tell you how
It's just a blessing, I would say.
It was a blessing, and something again we want to replicate. I also saw clinics where we were needing people not only with their mental health issues that they have, but also physical. They still have diabetes, they still have high blood pressure, they need medicine. So that was amazing as well. And mostly I saw local communities, volunteers helping their neighbors, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. So that was the first day. Met with a series of government officials, but yesterday I spent the entire day at Cox's Bazar at the camps there, and that's
That's a completely different story.
completely different story. But again, the only thing that's the same is that the Bangladesh Red Crescent is doing an amazing job. The IFRC, we're there with our 191 national societies to support, working closely with our other partners to help this long-term issue that's facing your country.
Right. So I'll have two follow-up questions, one on the camp and one on the Rumel. So first on the Rumel, as you have been there and you have seen how the local authorities been trying to improve the people's life, right? So do you think for such dealing with such cyclones or stuff like that, we need a more preparedness or more efficiency or with some more resources?
Well, I was privileged to meet with your Minister of Disaster Response and Management, and clearly your government realizes that you're in a climate change environment. And globally, no one has a corner on. Globally, we all need to be more prepared.
Right.
I don't think any of us expected the intensity or the speed of this, or the diversity. We're talking about cyclones. It's very warm today, and I believe 3 weeks ago you had a very big heat wave as well.
Yes.
So not only do governments, but individuals and even we in our world need to be thinking much more proactively towards climate change. We can no longer just respond to disasters. Instead, we have to educate your populace. We need to be better prepared. And quite frankly, we're going to need to adapt. Some people may need to move. We may need to change livelihoods. We're going to need different kinds of, we're seeing different kinds of seeds that we need that can withstand the heat.
Yes.
So it's a very complicated issue that's going to require private sector, government sector, and we in the humanitarian sector to be much more nimble, much more proactive, and much more willing to realize the depth of this problem.
Right. And how do you find IFRC in this scene?
Well, I think what we bring to the table is, first of all, we represent 191 national societies and 16 million volunteers.
Wow.
We're the largest
That's huge.
humanitarian organization. So what we bring, for instance, when the cyclone hit, we were able to advance to the Bangladesh Red Crescent $1 million within 72 hours to get the supplies they need. We've just launched a 12 million CHF franc fund appeal to give more aid. We bring expertise from around. We have 9 different national societies here working with you. So we bring a diversity of experience,
Right.
vast resources, both intellectually, supply-wise, and financially to help. And it's a two-way street, though. I've
Yes.
learned as much today for these 3 days from the Bangladesh Red Crescent than they probably have learned from me.
So we talked about cyclone, how you dealt with it. We talked about your visit to camps, and as I have follow-up question. But before that, what are the amazing things you found in the camps, as you have long experience of visiting such camps, and what are the things that really didn't make you happy? I'd love to get your impression, then I'll do more question.
You know, it's hard to say amazing. That's an interesting word to use in that. Having seen 1 million people be displaced from their homes, one has to feel that in their heart.
Right.
That here are people living lives that none of them would have picked ever. And now we're going on 7 years. And I think the length of the camp, usually we have camps after disasters and maybe it takes a year or so to rebuild, but 7 years. These geopolitical camps
Right.
are much different than camps that are a result of a disaster.
Right.
So that struck me. I'm always touched by the children in the camps, and I wonder what kind of future can I help them have. And so from that. On the plus side, I got to meet 50 women who were living in the camp who became Red Crescent volunteers.
That's good to know.
And our first aid. And they told me how they had put a splint on someone whose arms were, they're available 24/7 if someone has an emergency. So even in dire situations, the willingness of people to want to help one another had to make your heart feel good. It just had to.
Yeah,
So from
there's a
that
hope.
standpoint, there's hope. Yeah, and so that was amazing. And then we had some really cool coordination things. A young woman who went to college to become an architect.
Wow.
And now she's there helping to figure out how to make the structures more resilient against storms and cold and heat. And how they were able to use solar panels to bring in fans to make it more livable. So even there, young people wanting to be part of our movement, to use their education to apply. I'm sure when she started to be an architect, she didn't think, I'm going to be at Cox's Bazar designing shelters for families. I mean, that's pretty amazing, don't you think?
A lot of stories and different stories.
I was just, and then, you know, I think the second of what upset me was, again, the length of this, our need to address the humanitarian aid, and part of my job, I call them hidden crisis. As you know, in the world right now, much of the world is is focused, understandably, on the Middle East, on Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
And maybe Cox's Bazar is not getting the attention it got before. Unfortunately, our funding is down.
Yes.
I just met with ambassadors here to talk about how do we continue to meet the needs of those people in the camp
And
until they can be placed, go back to a safe place.
And what was their reply?
We all agreed that this is an issue with increasing humanitarian needs and aid not. So part of it is we have to be smarter.
Yes.
We have to work more in a coordinated manner. And we need to engage local communities, which the Bangladesh Red Cross and Red Crescent's doing with their volunteers.
Right.
They know better than we know what's needed and what's available. At the same time, we need to meet the needs of the host community.
Yes.
There's a community outside this camp that also has great needs.
Yeah.
We cannot turn our back on them either. So, you know, I came back realizing the depth of this issue, but also more resolved than ever to see that we continue to give the humanitarian aid we need to those in the camps and support the host community to the best of our ability. And at the ambassador's level, we talked about both sides of that.
Do you have IFRC representation in Myanmar? Are they
We
allowed to
we
work?
do have a national society in Myanmar, but as you can imagine, we're not as effective as we'd like to. It's a very, the government itself is fractured, and if you're perceived to be part of one side, then the other side doesn't want to work with you. So we just had our regional representative there 2 weeks ago, pleading with the Myanmar government, and we will do what we can to strengthen our national society there. But I won't sugarcoat it. It's not going to be easy, but we're committed to having those conversations. We've had them, and we will continue to have them.
Right. On this point, I have one more question, which is, what is you and your organization is trying to improve the people's life in Cox's Bazar? Because initially it was welcomed by the local communities, but now they are not happy. Because of many reasons. One of the main reasons is they are scared of losing jobs, because these Rohingyas are pretty cheaper as labor.
Yeah,
Okay, right? So how you work to improve both the sides for betterment?
Well, absolutely. But we need to, absolutely, the Bangladesh people have, the host community have every right to be concerned about keeping their livelihoods.
Right.
But if we want to relocate those in the camps, they have to have skills. They'll be more likely to be able to be more welcomed and going back. So one of the things we're talking about, what can we do within the camp to have skills that are developed in the camp that support the camp and are not in competition with the local community.
Okay.
So
That's tough.
That's tough.
That's tough.
Well, if it were easy, it would be done, right? But again, we've had experience in this, and part of our stress is, our focus will be to help with education and work skills. It's the only way we're going to be able to really relocate people.
Okay, how was the meeting with Foreign Minister?
It was good. You know, I've met now with 3 of your ministers, and they're informed, they're concerned, they understand the concerns of the Bangladesh people, and they're very interested in working with us to find solutions, and not just with Cox's Bazar, with public health issues.
Right.
We were here during COVID, if you remember.
Yes.
We played a huge role in COVID, and preparedness for cyclones, we talked a bit about that. So they were comprehensive, informative, cooperative meetings, and I feel very lucky that I was able to have the opportunity to meet with them.
Let's try to summarize the whole show, and if you compare Bangladesh as other South Asian country like India, like Pakistan, why do you see it and how do you find it in terms of all your relations, all your understandings and future challenges? How better we are?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Pakistan from my position as being president of a international organization. And I think I mentioned I came here. Bangladesh, I know you're the most densely populated country,
Yes,
and 200 million is a big country, but on preparedness, you're making strides that many other countries aren't. Your early warning system. You were very successful, we hate to use the word successful during COVID-19, but your
Yes.
response was good. And what I'm seeing today, I was at the hospital, and you now have your own ability to produce oxygen. We do in our own hospitals.
Yes.
So they're thinking ahead. It's not just it happened and they said it's done. They're being very, very proactive. The new Emergency Operations Center, very positive. So I think you should take great pride around what's going on. And again, your voices at the governing board level and at the international conference will be heard. You have a unique position with the issues you're facing, with as seriously as you're taking them, to have a strong voice on the world's platform and take it.
Right. And how do you see Bangladesh Red Cross is doing in terms of as a capacity, helping to have capacity?
Well, this is when I always give my pitch. They're doing great, but they could do better. We can all do better. Every Bangladesh citizen should be a part of the Red Crescent. You should volunteer, you should donate, because at the end of the day, it's at the community level that we make differences. And I'm very impressed with your new chairman. You have a new board, and I see a commitment there to do a good analysis of what the needs are going forward, and for lessons learned. One of the reasons we were here is to look at the cyclone, and even though you all did very well, what can we do better?
Right.
My mantra is, what can we do better? Let's celebrate our success, but what can we do better? And that's how I feel about Bangladesh Red Crescent. Let's celebrate their success and let's see what we can do better.
Yeah, let's see what we can do better. Thank you so much for being in the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's a learning experience, definitely for me.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. দর্শক, দেখা হবে মুখোমুখির অন্য কোনো পর্বে। বাংলাদেশ কিন্তু দুর্যোগ মোকাবিলায় যথেষ্ট ভালো করছে, তবে প্রস্তুতির কোনো বিকল্প নেই। দেখা হবে, তারা কিন্তু ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।